On this week's NFV SDN Reality Check, we speak with Radisys for a deeper look into cord and in-cord initiatives. Well, thanks for joining us on this week's NFV SDN Reality Check. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief at RCR Wireless News. On this week's show, we have a featured interview with Radisys for a deeper look into cord and in-cord initiatives. But first, let's take a look at some top headlines from across the space over the past week. Well, SK Telecom and Ericsson this week claimed to have demonstrated the first software-defined telecommunications infrastructure based on Hyperscale Datacenter System 8000 at SK Telecom's 5G Playground Innovation Center. The firms described SDTI as an infrastructure platform where all mobile network infrastructure components such as CPU, memory, and storage are disaggregated as customizable modules that can be flexibly and dynamically recomposed together to provide the optimal level of infrastructure scale for various 5G services based on their requirements. The concept is based on infrastructure slicing and supporting dynamic composition and lifecycle management at the physical hardware layer, and is set to enhance efficiency and network infrastructure upgrades as the disaggregated modules of the server can be separately upgraded. SDTI is seen as key for end-to-end 5G network slicing, which is described as a virtualized and logically separated network optimized for a specific user or service consisting of network slices of different domains in the mobile network, including radio access network, IP transport network, core network, and physical infrastructure. SK Telecom and Ericsson last year demonstrated network slicing at the same research center in South Korea. SK Telecom and Ericsson also said by the end of this year, they plan to jointly build an end-to-end pilot system using SDTI with 5G equipment to test the technical and performance characteristics. Also this week, a recent survey released by the Linux Foundation's OP&FE project found an increasingly small percentage of telecom operators have not yet planned for network functions virtualization. The survey, which was conducted by OP&FE, for OP&FE by Heavy Reading and released at the recent OP&FE Summit, noted 6% of the more than 90 telecom operators questioned did not have an NFV strategy planned at all, down from 14% last September. In highlighting its own progress in support of development plans, OP&FE said 99% of respondents believe the organization will deliver on its promise of a carrier-grade, integrated, open-source reference platform intended to accelerate the introduction of new products and services, with a focus on working with upstream projects to coordinate continuous integration and testing while filling development gaps. Nearly the same percentage of those operators also said they believe OP&FE is essential or important to the telecom industry as a whole, and 97% said they plan to leverage the output of OP&FE in some way. Despite the optimism, operators indicated that a lack of skill set and a lack of upper management support remains the biggest barriers for their involvement in OP&FE. Telecom operators also noted security is the top technology OP&FE should investigate, which the organization said it is working through based on the information last year of its security working group. OSS, BSS, and management orchestration were also cited as areas of needed focus. Well, make sure to check out the rcrwireless.com site for all the latest news from the NFV, SDN, and cloud space. Well, for this week's featured interview, we spoke with Brian Sadowski, who's the VP of Flow Engine Product Marketing at Radisys, for a deeper dive into the cord and in-cord initiatives that seem to be gaining increased attention from across the telecom space. Let's take a look at the interview now. Well, thanks for joining us on this week's NFV SDN Reality Check. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief at RCR Wireless News. And this week we are joined by Brian Sadowski, who's the VP of Flow Engine Product Marketing at Radisys, to talk a bit about what's happening at the company, and also kind of discuss a bit about the various cord initiatives out there. So, hey, Brian, thanks for joining us this week. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Glad to be on the show.
Very good. Appreciate it. Let me start off with maybe a little overview of just the company itself, maybe what you do there at Radisys, just kind of what you guys, I guess, how the company participates in the telecom space.
Yeah. So I'm like you said, VP of Product Marketing for the Flow Engine product, and the company Radisys we've been around quite a while now. 20, almost 30 years. And we have a couple of different business units that participate within various places within the telecom space. We have a traditional product line, which is really our heritage, where we came from, which is embedded products. So we did a lot of work with ATCA, perfect fit solution capabilities. That business is sort of transitioning out, And what's transitioning in are things like the Flow Engine product, which I have, which is really a disaggregated data plane, SDN-enabled high-performance data plane switching product that does flow classifications from all the way from layer 2 all the way up to layer 7. But we have a couple other businesses as well. One of them being Media Engine, which was through an acquisition of Convidia a few years ago. That does conferencing, tones announcements, voice over LTE capabilities. Mm-hmm. Then we also purchased a company called Continuous Computing a few years ago, and they primarily do a lot of small cell protocol stack work, as well as custom professional services for various carriers who are building out LTE networks, 4G networks, mm-hmm. Across the globe. So you take all of those piece parts, and then we also have another a brand new product line that I also control called the DC Engine, which is really taking sort of OCP or Open Compute Platform commodity hardware, compute, storage, and networking, and packaging it together for the telco environments, so that we can layer on all this NFV and all this virtualized capabilities that are coming on, which is part of the Cord initiative and the other initiatives that we're involved in.
Yeah, well, obviously you guys are in the center of a lot of acronyms that are coming around the telecom space, so that's always important to be a part of as well. But it's always good for the industry. But I guess maybe start off with before we jump too much into the Cord part of this. I know there's some news recently with Verizon as well. You guys have done some work there. I guess can you describe a little bit of what that was about and kind of your participation there in that announcement?
Yeah, so that was a Flow Engine, our Flow Engine product. They were, they're really our first, large scale carrier customer, and what we're doing for them is they have, because we built the Flow Engine from the ground up to be sort of agnostic to the SDN control space, we abstracted out a lot of that control logic. So we're able to adapt to various different controllers and various different protocols. So we want to keep it open. We want to have a lot of different ways to access and access our tables. And so they used a product from Mojitatu called, and it uses the Forces protocol. Mm-hmm. It's a slight differentiation from OpenFlow. But nonetheless, we were able to adapt very quickly to that. And so they used the product to program flows for load balancing applications and network tapping functions and DPI capabilities.
Got it. And obviously, as part of that too, but obviously it does seem like that the open nature of all this work is an important aspect as well. I mean, I know it does seem like, at least for the telecom space, the openness that has come along with this move towards SDN and NFV is somewhat new for the telecom operators. They're used to very, kind of a lot of, not necessarily vendor lock-in, but a lot of proprietary software and hardware working together. It does seem like this movement now is a lot more towards the open ecosystem. And it seems like obviously you guys are a big part of that as well. Can you talk a bit about the importance of, I guess, if everybody kind of being just open to openness, I guess?
Yeah. So what's interesting is, you're exactly right. The proprietary stack, the siloed stack of vendors, it's sort of been, status quo. But if you go back, we actually have a history of standardization because, we really, built the first round of the company on ATCA, which ATCA really was kind of the first go round of trying to create an open platform for the carriers, sort of agnostic hardware that anybody could build blades to fit into these chassis. Obviously it had some success. It's really now evolved with the proliferation of open source software, especially Linux, and all of the capabilities that come from that. That's really where I think we've made a quantum jump. With Facebook's OCP. Initiation, now you're really starting to see just, there's so much commodity off-the-shelf hardware that it's really simple to just bring that stuff together. And so we feel pretty fortunate in that we have a strong hardware history. So we really understand how to bring hardware together at the scale that the carriers need it at. So I think, we're very excited because we have a history of interoping and, having to deal with ecosystems and having to deal with open standards. And so for us, we're not afraid of, opening up the kimono and sharing what we're doing.
That's a good way to put that. But yeah, no, it definitely seems like that's an interesting angle because I talk to a lot of companies on this show and a lot of them come from the data center side, more of the software side of things. And it's interesting to hear their their take on kind of what telecom needs to do. And sometimes it's not quite, there's a bit of a disconnect between what they realize, what's happening in the telecom space, and where they need to go. And then you get companies like yourselves, for instance, who have a history in the telecom side as well, who kind of have a little more understanding, it seems like. I mean, obviously, telecom needs to change, but it can't change overnight. There's a lot of legacy systems involved, and you have to have some sort of understanding of what's happening out there to kind of help them along this process, because it is a big process for these guys to change what they've been doing for 20, 30, 40 years to this new world where we're kind of going to.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I was in the VoIP space in a prior life, and so I got to see sort of this coming together of the old telco, TDM circuit switching world with IP networking, right?
Yeah.
And that was it was very different worlds and, very different viewpoints. And, at the end of the day, IP infrastructure won out, right? But it was really about bridging, and bringing together those two worlds. Well, now we're in a new disruption that's occurring where you've got IP infrastructure everywhere. But now you've got the web, this DevOps world that sits above in the web world that operates very differently from the infrastructure world, and they're coming together now. And so, everything kind of repeats itself every 20 years in telecom. And so I think that, we're at this position. And so we're in a pretty unique position to help carriers sort of bridge that divide, because you're right. I mean, there's different, if you listen to John Donovan at AT&T or, some of the other folks, over at the other carriers, I mean, they know that they need to get to this DevOps environment, this data center thought process, so that they can innovate far more rapidly. But they have a legacy to deal with, and so they're trying to figure it out with retraining and programs, and and it's a process. But at the end of the day, it's happening, and there's no stopping it. So.
Yeah, that's a good point too. It does seem like the operators now are really getting behind this. I mean, it's from the top level down, really, that there's this push to do this. I mean, it couldn't be possible without having that, because it is such a dramatic change for these operators. I mean, I know the rank and file might be a little, maybe worked up over these movements, but when you've got the top guys saying, hey, this is how it's going, we're throwing our support behind this, it gets the whole organization kind of turned in that direction. So it's an important part to really get everybody on board to make these moves too.
Yeah, no, you see it with a number of big tier one carriers. I mean, they're on board, and if we go back to the Verizon press release, we've been working with Verizon on the data center product, the DC engine, as well as the flow engine, and they have some linkages. But what you're seeing is the DevOps focused folks within the carriers, they're moving so much faster. And it's that fail faster, so that you can fix it and keep moving forward. It's really interesting to see, and it's really exciting times. I mean, I think that, it's probably scary for a lot of folks within these big lumbering carriers.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But nonetheless, it's heading that direction, and it's exciting too.
Yeah, no, I've talked to a lot of people on the AT&T side, for instance, about, the people who are involved in a lot of their SDN work. And that's one of their biggest complaints, really. Not really a complaint, but one of their issues is they wish it would just move faster, because they are, kind of a few steps ahead of the process, and they're moving, they're having to wait, moving, wait. And they want to get rid of that wait part and just get it all flowing out there as quick as they can. But again, these are big ships that are hard to turn direction on. So
and it takes time, and they're moving. If you step back for a minute, everybody compares them to Google and Facebook, and but if you really look at they've got 50 years of legacy behind them, and they're moving really. I mean, the things that they're saying, and this is happening.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch. But one thing too, I guess, and talking a bit about AT&T, I know they've been pushing a lot of this Core initiative, which I believe is I've got it written down here, the central office re-architected as a data center platform.
Correct.
There, but Core, again, another nice acronym for us. And I guess I want to touch a bit with you, I guess, on that. I mean, maybe a little overview from you on, I guess, the Open Core project, and maybe how, we've heard a lot about the mobile core as well. Maybe how these things all kind of work together and what their impact is on the telecom space.
Yeah. So if you take a look, I mean, really where it came from is you look at these carriers, and they have thousands of central offices with siloed equipment, some of it 50 years old. And they're trying to make this change. Because if you look at them, their competitor, they don't view AT&T doesn't view Verizon really as their competitor. They view Facebook and Amazon and Google. And so they're looking at the way those guys are innovating, and they're like, how do I evolve my capabilities? Because I have this massive mobile network, and I'm rolling out 5G, and and I've got all this fixed assets, and how do I turn it so that I can start delivering services like they do? But the challenges are they're stuck in all these siloed architectures from all their vendors, and so they're kind of handcuffed. So when they want to roll out a new service, they have to interop with all these different silos, and it takes forever, and they have these old lumbering OSS and BSSs. So really what Cord is saying is, listen, we're moving to this data center architecture. So why don't we create these blueprints that can be pre-configured, pre-validated, pre-tested, that you can roll in and light up central offices and get your compute, storage, and networking in place so that you can drop in your virtual network functions, and you can do it you can do it in weeks rather than months. Mm-hmm. And so Open Cord is really, we're going to open source this whole thing. We're not going to just work with AT&T or work with Verizon and figure it out, because all the carriers have the same problem. So they're all kind of joined together saying, listen, if we share all of our ideas together, we can create these sort of generalized blueprints that consist of commodity hardware. So OCP hardware as a general rule, with compute, storage, and networking. And then there's open source software components, because they all want to use as much open source as they can. There will be commercial stuff in there, but there's a lot of open source software. Namely, if you look, they're using, a flavor of Linux. Right now it's Ubuntu, but it could be, some other flavor with OpenStack, using what they have open source called the ONOS, O-N-O-S, SDN controller, and there's this thing called the XOS. It's a service orchestrator. Mm-hmm. So you layer all of those open source pieces together on top of this commodity hardware software, and you get a blueprint. And then what you do is you say, okay, that's the Open Cord. Now, if I say mobile core, well, I have the EPC, and I have the packet gateway and the service gateway and the MME. I want to virtualize all of those and layer that on top of this Open Cord fabric, and now I have the M-Cord use cases. So they have a residential cord, which is really vCPE and VOLT that layers in, and vRouter. So it's taking sort of some use cases that apply to a particular part of their network, but utilizing the underlying same framework as a platform so that they can deliver this. And then you take that blueprint and say, okay, I can now deliver this within core data centers, because if you look at like a Facebook and a Google or a Microsoft, they have a few data centers, huge, with thousands of servers, right, acres. Whereas the carriers, on the other hand, they have thousands of central offices. Now they're going to probably whittle some of those down, so they're going to have a hybrid. They're going to have some centralized back-end services that are going to be virtualized, but they're going to need some stuff that's going to be closer to the client, so edge. There'll be edge data centers, and they want it to feel and look and be the same. So that's really what the whole Cord initiative is really about, is to create templates so you can roll in the hardware, the software, and you can bring in systems integration to validate all of that, pre-validate it, so you can literally roll in racks, connect power, connect the networking, light it up, and it's ready to go.
And obviously, it seems like this involves, it has a pretty close working relationship between the vendors, the operators, the open source community. This is a pretty, you explained it very easily, which made it seem like it's such a simple thing. But it sounds like, it's a pretty in-depth process that's really has everybody needs to work pretty closely on this to make it work as smooth as everybody's hoping it works, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's been a real interesting process for us working there. It's really, because there's so much disruption going on, everybody's realized you have to collaborate. You can't really go it alone anymore. And those that think they can are going to be in trouble. Mm-hmm. From the collaboration side, from the carrier side, AT&T is a big. They sort of started this whole. Yeah. SK Telecom, Verizon, China Unicom, Argella. There's a number of carriers involved in the various Cord projects. And then, on the vendor side, us, Cavium, Intel, NEC, AirHop, and there's others. There's, Sienna is involved. Ericsson is there. They've done some work. So and everybody, they know if they don't do this, if they create a sort of soup to nuts, you use my stuff, I'll harden everything for you, but it's all my software. There's really no difference from going from where we are today to where they're trying to go, right? They really need this agile processing. They need these open APIs to be able to drop in different vendor solutions.
Yeah, no, that's true. It does seem like maybe some vendors out there maybe being pulled into this direction, kicking and screaming. But again, when you've got big companies, operators like you said, AT&T, SK Telecom, all those guys saying they want to go this way, that tends to change minds on a lot of different vendors as well. They kind of get them on board. So it seems like, again, it's moving. I know the past couple of years, covering the space, it has been a bit slow, it seems, but it does seem like we're finally getting some momentum, at least it seems, across the space where everybody's kind of on the same, at least on the same boat, if not in the same cabin of that boat. At least everybody's at least on board with this.
Yeah, I think everybody's starting to realize if we can as we get there, it is going to allow everybody thinks the over-the-top players they have a big advantage, right? Just from the way they've come up, they don't have the legacy and the heritage. But the carriers, the service providers, I mean, they have huge assets and they have huge networking experience. So they're going to be able to build amazing networking services that are far more personalized, and they're going to be able to deliver a quality of experience that's going to be tremendous once they sort of get these platforms in place.
Yeah, so, I mean, it seems for the most part they've already done the hard stuff, which is putting in a lot of this infrastructure in place. I mean, again, like you said, they've got networks that reach all over the world, and that's kind of the hard part, it would seem, where kind of layering the stuff on top of this now should be easier. I mean, obviously for them it's a whole different mindset, so maybe it's a little difficult internally for them, but when you see it how rapidly everybody else is able to do this, it would seem that if you get enough right partners on board, it should be an easier process than what they've done in the past. But who knows how that works out. But anyway, I guess
the devil's in the details, right? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be work. It's going to be work across the board, and some of it is, some of it's more mental than the actual work, So, but no, they're all, they're all on board, and so these types of blueprints are, only going to allow them to accelerate and get to market far more quickly.
Yeah, well, I know one thing I'll touch on, maybe get some insight from you, is on the M-Cord part of it. I guess, can you provide any insight into, I guess, the proof of concepts that are out there in the market, or what's kind of being worked on in terms of M-Cord? Because it does seem like that has, at least for what we cover on the mobile side here, probably has pretty good relevance. But what have you seen out there in the market in terms of some POCs when it comes to M-Cord? Yeah,
so M-Cord is it's more geared towards 5G, so it's still early stages. They did, the first POC was done at the ONS Summit a couple of months ago. And essentially, it was really, it basically took and virtualized the EPC and the RAN, and it layered that on top of commodity hardware, commodity networking, and it turned around. And it should, so it showed the setup of, how you would set up subscribers. It sort of showed the operational capabilities with it all being virtualized. And then what it did is it demonstrated content caching for a video, for video CDN, right? And so and it proved out, because the video didn't need to come back, it was, they could just dynamically drop that caching capability at the mobile edge, right, on these general purpose compute servers. The video was actually better because it didn't need to backhaul itself back to the main data centers, right? So it was sort of a demonstration that, hey, we've done this. Now, was it fully, SDN enabled everything? No, but there were, the switching was SDN enabled, and there was flow classification capabilities built in, and virtualized gateway service, virtualized EPC functionality. So they layered out the first proof of concept, and it was successful. So now you've got a couple of carriers, bringing that into their labs. And the next sort of the goal for the next POC is really to start fully SDN enabling all the different piece parts. And so that the eNodeB, the serving gateway, packet gateway, MME, all gets SDNified, if you want to call it, and further, further hardening and further, adding further capabilities. So the whole process is being run, in an agile manner. So, it's a sprint model with, you have your Scrum Master, and you go through these 3-week sprints for functionality, and then at the end of a couple months, you have a demo, and you demo your capabilities, and you're doing the process like the DevOps does it, and the first go around, I mean, from concept to actually being able to showcase something was literally a couple months. So it shows the power of doing this iterative type of software delivery.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, it does seem interesting that you hear about ideas to do these things, and then I'll go to a show at some point, and they are doing it. It's like you hear about it, and then it's like so rapidly. It's like, hey, yeah, remember the thing we talked about 3 weeks ago? Well, here's what it looks like. It's like, well, that's kind of interesting how it works. Again, coming from the telecom side of things, to see something happen that rapidly is interesting to see just how rapidly they can do these things.
Yeah, and there's work. The shift that's occurring to get to this sort of iterative, agile development model is, it's not just on the carriers. I mean, all the vendors that have traditionally supplied equipment to the carriers, they have the same issues.
Yeah.
They're very much from a waterfall model. You collect your requirements, you develop, you go through batches of testing. You have all these features, and then you deliver, and then you do lab work, and then you fix your bugs, and then you go first office verification, fix those bugs, and then and then the whole process is like a 12-month process. You start all over again, and what you find is it's kind of counterintuitive, because you think, oh my God, that we're doing so much testing this way. But with the agile process, you end up in a mode where you're making smaller changes, but more of them in succession. And so when you do have a problem, where to look. Because there's only a few things that changed, rather than when you come out with these big monolithic releases, there's 1,000 new features in there. And sometimes it takes a while just to root cause it, right? So this, allows you to root cause far more quickly, fix it, test it again, and roll it back out again. And so, and build in a lot more automation tools.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, automation. Yeah, that's not the whole. Yeah, we could go down a whole another rabbit hole with automation aspects of this, but I'll save you from that. But I guess maybe one final question as we kind of look at the market right now. I mean, as operators look at these models that are coming out, obviously the POCs that are happening, some of the larger operators are already involved with these. But I guess what should the telecom operator out there be looking at in terms of what their next step might be in terms of this move down, whether it's cord or any sort of kind of this SDN world? Or what do you think they should be kind of looking at this point as kind of their next step or two?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, they need to start looking at, using these open building blocks, right, that are independent of the services that are going to be deployed. So they really need to abstract out, the hardware and the platform software layer from the service delivery layer. So they should be looking at that, and then taking a look at how do you find, partners that you can collaborate with, not just buy stuff from, because, these problems aren't solved and they're evolving. And as you go down this sort of DevOps modeling, development models, you really need a partner that can evolve with you and really react to changes on the ground that occur very quickly. So you really want, integration partners that can help you, with this layered architecture, right? You have hardware issues that you're going to have to, figure out to get economies of scale.
Mm-hmm.
And you want the efficiencies of commodity off the shelf. You're going to have open source software. You're going to need, partners to help you with hardening that, making that commercialized, so that you can, figure out how you can layer in patches, often without breaking things. And then someone to really, be able to help you sort of wrap it all together so that you can deploy this at the scale. Because these carriers, I mean, when you have thousands of central offices, you're talking about, thousands and thousands of servers that need to be deployed. And so you need partners that can help you, really rapidly get these things out there.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that scaling aspect is probably one of the things that scares operators perhaps the most about this is I think they don't believe that people understand their scaling needs on this. And so, yeah, that's a very important part of this, to make sure that everybody's on board in terms of how this all rolls out. So should be interested in watching that plays out. But hey, Brian, definitely appreciate getting insight on this today. Obviously, it was great to have someone who could explain Chord in a very coherent manner. I appreciate that just for myself. Who cares about anybody else? But that was good for me. But I definitely appreciate the insight on that today. Thanks so much for the time. And hopefully we'll talk again soon on the topic. But again, thanks so much for the time today.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Dan.
All right. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
NFV SDN Reality Check with Dan Meyer is a production of RCR TV. To suggest show topics or to reach Dan, you can find him on email, dmeyer@rcrwireless.com, and on Twitter @Meyer_Dan. For more Dan, news on NFV SDN and everything wireless, find your way over to rcrwireless.com.